Finally, on June the 26th, US infantry entered the suburbs. That same day, before a gathered press he clearly seemed not to appreciate, Lieutenant General von Schlieben, the commandant of the garrison, surrendered. Although this giant of a man politely wiped his feet before his victor, the young General Collins, he nonetheless balked on his oath made to Hitler to prefer death over the shame of surrender. And Schlieben even surrendered before his men, who didn't lay down their weapons until the following day. The Americans weren't always easy on prisoners, which is somewhat understandable. Since D-Day, they had already lost 22,000 men. The average age of the prisoners, some old, some very young, showed the decline of the German army in the west, while its younger, battle-hardened troops were deployed in the east, fighting the Red Army. 36,000 prisoners at Cherbourg, a huge number in terms of what cameras can capture, although they do often take us by surprise and mark us forever. With Cherbourg taken, one of the last sections of the Atlantic Wall had come tumbling down. Unlike the faces of their men, those of the captured officers maintained a degree of haughtiness. Or was it perhaps shame? After Cherbourg, Hitler decided to personally oversee the German army in the west. He removed von Rundstedt, who had suggested calling a truce, and replaced him with the more obliging Field Marshal von Kluge. Rommel, dismayed by the Führer's hardline policies, knew that all he could do now was to delay the ultimate disaster. Meanwhile, Eisenhower was also worried. Yes, the Americans had taken Cherbourg, but Montgomery was yet to have captured Caen, the planned launch pad for an attack on German lines. Installed inland, the German army had the advantage of space and the possibilities of supplies and reinforcements, whereas the Allies remained hemmed in along the Channel coast. The Americans had no choice but to pierce the enemy front in the Cotentin. Not easy in a region of bocage where the hedgerows made defense easier. To see without being seen, a big advantage for the enemy in a battle for which none of the American youngsters were prepared. In this huge checkerboard maze, a handful of resilient combatants could stop an entire battalion. And when they did concede one of these square fields, they simply had to come back around the sides. American tanks were obliged to stick to the roads, making them easy targets. Just as they were when they had to cross levees, openly presenting their unarmored bellies to enemy fire. These bocage traps accounted for thousands of GI lives and resulted in a failed attempt to penetrate what became known as this goddamn country. With the Americans in difficulty, the British simply had to capture Caen. Montgomery finally decided to employ considerable means. He asked for backup from the Royal Air Force. Over 2,500 tons of bombs were dropped on the city. Some advance on Caen, others leave it. No point in even looking at each other. That's life. After 2 days of fierce combat, 115,000 British troops entered the east of the city, which was now three-quarters destroyed. On July the 13th, Montgomery arrived in the city. It had taken him over a month to capture only part of Caen, a city he had hoped to take in one day, setting up the Allied push inland. Clearly, in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Although the inhabitants raised the flag of the Cross of Lorraine, much of the city was still in German hands. But that didn't prevent the British propaganda machine from having people believe that the inhabitants of the city of 1,000 steeples and British troops were happy to drink a toast together. Goodbye. Thanks again. Don't mention it. Pleasure was all mine. Was such intensive bombing and the 2,000 deaths it caused when the German defenses were placed around the city really necessary? The debate still rages today. Each man and woman reacted in their own way. Who was this German playing the organ in a ruined Normandy church? A madman? A filthy Jerry? A music lover? Or a lost soldier of Hitler, now weighed down by his leader's excesses, simply enjoying a moment's escape from this Holocaust scenery?